We're going to talk about Blake Griffin. And if he can Blake Griffin still contribute to an NBA team? I'm also going to go over some trade packages and the best fits, teams that offer the best fit for Blake Griffin. So far, Blake Griffin's the downfall of his career has been very sad. He's had 16 injuries since 2017. He was a former number 1 overall pick in the same draft as DeMar DeRozan, James Harden, Steph Curry, and a bunch of other very good players. He's had 16 injuries since 2017. 11 have been knee-related. This season, he was playing 31 minutes per game before the Detroit Pistons decided not to play him anymore. He's averaging 12 points per game, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, shooting 36% from the field and 31% from 3. He's basically turned into a spot-up shooter in Detroit. He's really only taking threes. He doesn't have the speed to get by anybody anymore. He's never been a good defender. And it's sad to see that because I grew up watching Blake Griffin. I saw in 2011 when he jumped over a Kia in the dunk contest. I saw that. I saw that Blake. And what I think is worst about all of this is that we never got to see a prime Blake Griffin in the playoffs with the Clippers or the Pistons. With the Clippers, he was always injured. When it was time to go into the playoffs, either Blake Griffin or Chris Paul or both were injured. When he was with Detroit, when he had a great year in 2018, the Pistons made the playoffs. They were matched up with the Bucks in the first round. Blake Griffin tried to play through an injury, but it was clear that he just couldn't. We never got to see a prime Blake in the highest stage of them all, in the playoffs. In 2018, that's when he had his last great season. He averaged 24.5 points per game, 7.5 rebounds per game, 5.4 assists per game, and shot 36% from 3, which for him is really good, but as a whole in the NBA, that's league average. I think there are 5 teams that can fit him well. The Lakers, the Celtics, the Heat, the Mavericks, and the Oklahoma City Thunder. OKC right now and Boston are the only 2 teams that can actually trade for him. OKC can do it because they have cap space. And if Detroit wants to trade Blake Griffin to OKC, I think Detroit would probably have to give them picks, and Sam Presti would just keep stockpiling more and more picks. He has so many picks for the next coming years. The trade offer could be Trevor Ariza, Mike Muscala, for Blake Griffin and some picks. For the Celtics, they can do it because they have a trade exception. Every other team pretty much has to get him can only get him if he is bought out. When we talk about the Lakers and his fit there, he could start right now because Anthony Davis is not playing. And I think he'd be a good fit next to LeBron. Anybody can look good next to LeBron. Most players can. There's been some exceptions and anomalies, but for the most part, you can. When Davis comes back, Blake Griffin could come off the bench, and that would be very beneficial for him. But even then, how would that work if Montrezl Harrell is playing that spot? It'd be very tricky. The Celtics would be a perfect fit because they have no bench at all. And we are going to talk about the Celtics in the next 2 segments, actually. We are going to talk about the Celtics and their struggles. The Celtics have no bench at all. Blake Griffin can come off the bench and be that main scorer, main facilitator off the Celtics bench. And I think that would be pretty good because right now the Celtics are outscored by 5 points per 100 possessions when Jason Tatum is off the court, which means that when Jason Tatum is off, they lose leads. What better guy to help maintain those leads than Blake Griffin? Let's see what he has. The other team, the Miami Heat, they're just looking for a spark. Miami's not even in the playoffs right now. They are not even in the playoff race right now. Even with Jimmy coming back and the team pretty much healthy, they are still losing games. They lost to a Clippers team that had no Kawhi and no Paul George. The Miami Heat were a team that made the finals last season. And this season, they look nothing like that team. It feels and it looks like a completely different team. Miami's just looking for a spark. That's why Blake Griffin would make sense there. And that would have to be done through a buyout. The Mavericks are another option. You just need another guy to help out Luka and KP. The Mavericks have kind of the same problem where they need guys off the bench that can do things. And Blake Griffin, if you're getting this Blake Griffin that's shooting this horribly from the field, he can't really help much. Plus, he's a negative net defender. So how much can that really help? But in essence, right now, you're just banking on what Blake Griffin can be. Because what he's shown has not been very good. Any team that wants to bring him in is kind of just bringing him in because they're just throwing a penny into a water fountain. They're just trying to make a wish come true. They're just hoping that Blake Griffin even hits a little bit of what he hit in 2018, even performs a little bit of that. Because of that, all of these teams, it really doesn't matter where he goes. Now, the question is, can Blake Griffin still be a productive NBA player? And in my opinion, he can be. For one, he can only be one if he accepts his role. He has to accept the role of coming off the bench, not being a starter anymore, not wanting to be a star anymore. He has to put his pride aside, kind of like what Derrick Rose is doing now, a guy who was also hampered by injuries. Blake Griffin has a good skill set. He has good handle. He's a good passer. If he can shoot like he did in 2018 at 36%, he's manageable. He can space the floor somewhat. But everything else is pretty much bad. I mean, he can't really drive to the basket anymore. He can't play defense. And just those knees, those injuries, for any guy to come back from that is a pretty terrific feat. But we'll see what happens with Blake Griffin. Also, OKC only makes sense because that's Blake Griffin's hometown. That's the only reason why. Where do I see Blake Griffin going? I'm not entirely sure right now. Where could I see him going? And the best fit, I think Boston. I think Boston because they can either trade for him with that big trade exception. They'd have to make a decision though. Do they want to trade for Drummond or Griffin? They can either trade for him or they can buy him out, they can pick him up when he's bought out. But I think Blake Griffin makes the most sense with the Boston Celtics.